Hey, welcome. You're going to be glad you pressed play on this button. It's Doug, and today's show is brought to you by the letters C, S, and I. We're in the CSI office right now of the Sacramento Sheriff's Office, and this is so crazy. You're going to get to look at like all this stuff behind me in just one second. First, I want to introduce John and introduce Rachel. You guys are, what's your title, like CSI agents or?
So we're deputy sheriffs first, and then we are assigned to the crime scene investigation unit. So our real title is a deputy sheriff, but a lot of people call us crime scene investigators.
Crime scene investigator, so that's what CSI stands for.
Crime scene investigator or crime scene investigation.
So cool. All right, so do you have to be like a deputy to do this job?
Great question. And for our department at the Sheriff's Office, yes, you do. So you need to be a full-time peace officer, have completed the academy. Then you would go through the process of applying for this position when it's available.
Gotcha.
And then if you are selected for this position, you complete a 13-week field training and lab program. And if you successfully complete that, you start working in the field.
That's crazy. This is such a cool place to be in. There's actually evidence lockers and everything. You're going to see that coming up in the video, I promise. So I wanted to ask you guys, when does your day start? Like, is this like a normal 9-to-5 job, or does your day sometimes start at like 3 in the morning if there's a crime? Like,
So our shifts, we have 3 shift models, and we have an A side of the week and a B side of the week. So there's the first half of your work week or the second half, the kind of Wednesday as being our split. And we have a day shift that starts at 5 in the morning, a swing shift that works at noon, and then a graveyard shift that comes in at 6 at night. And we work a 12-hour shift. So you have your normal work week, your 3 and 4 days that we would normally work, and then you are subject to call-outs. So if there's a major event that happens, sometimes we do get called at home and brought in to handle other calls or go to the major event itself.
Gotcha. And what kind of specialized training do you need to work in the CSI department?
We do, through our field training program, our training officers will train you on some very specific tasks related to actually forensic scene photography, where we have one of our cameras here that we use on a tripod. You also get extensive training in actually how to fingerprint. This is one of our fingerprint kits here. And then one of the other major things we do is obviously evidence collection, lots of evidence collection going on. So our people are also trained in how to properly document and collect evidence to preserve it for later testing. And one of our other main things that we're going to do at scenes is scene diagramming, which we've got a sample of one for you here too, which is where we basically are doing a sketch to document where things are at in scenes, and also such as evidence and diagramming dimensions.
A lot of people don't understand exactly what a bullet will do to material. We all have our ideas based on what we see on TV or the movies. Things are being torn and ripped, and there's spatter and things like that. So in this instance, I took the shirt down and I used my service pistol, which is a 9mm, and I hung the shirt up on one of our cardboard targets, and I shot it 4 times with the same type of ammo. And you can see there's different holes. So the purpose of this is kind of show you how close do you think the weapon was to that material to cause this effect. And so we've got 4 of them there. So which one do you think is the closest, and how close do you think I was to it?
I would say this one is probably like straight on, and then
how close do you think I was with a gun to that shirt? How close?
Probably like right on top of it, because don't guns get hot, and maybe like there's a lot of material there? I don't know.
Wow, I think he's hired.
Really?
So good. And which one is the farthest away, and why do you think that?
I would think the farthest away would probably be like a smaller one, a more clean one, because the bullet like had further to travel, so probably debris and stuff fell off of it on the way.
Pretty much straight.
Okay.
Pretty much straight on. Exactly what you're describing here. So this is the farthest away. How far away do you think that is?
I wouldn't even know.
Okay, so this one is very close contact. I think it's 2 inches away. So what we're seeing is we even lost the bullet hole here. It doesn't look like this. What we have here is that the gases that are expelling out of the muzzle of the barrel expand, and they rip and they tear, and this is all damage. You can see actually how it's discolored from burning. So we've got the powder burn as well as the tearing of the material. Versus over here, we hardly have anything. We just have a hole. But if we flip this over, you can see I was 2 feet away from that.
Wow.
Versus 2 inches. So just that little bit made a little bit of a difference. So fingerprinting is probably the majority of what we go out to. Rachel, you want to talk about burglaries and kind of what we do while I fingerprint?
Sure. So one of the main things that we do when we respond to burglaries is fingerprinting. And as you're going to see John demonstrate here, how we use a wand. with fingerprint powder to dust over a surface to create a possible fingerprint.
Oh, wow.
After we develop a fingerprint, we go through the process of actually just using a tape. We cut that piece of tape, a clear piece of tape, adhere it to the surface, and then we stick that on a fingerprint card, which is actually the very thing you're looking at right there. Once we lift a fingerprint, we then send it to our lab for examination.
So it's literally that quick, like you just dust and pull the fingerprint and you've got the fingerprint, you've got that piece of evidence.
Yeah, when we go to houses, obviously there could be several things to do or there
Right.
could be very little to do. But if we get a good surface for a fingerprint that's fresh, it will usually come up fairly easier like that.
Wow.
Some of the other things commonly we deal with at home or home burglaries is you may see pry marks. People that they use to force entry will use tools.
So we've got marks that are left behind, maybe in a door where it's been pried, but we've got a couple tools that are left at the scene. So you can simply take those tools and figure out which one of these tools made these marks that are in here, these indentations that are in the wood. So if you take the tool and you try, okay, well that fits pretty well. So it's a good likelihood that this is the tool that made these markings.
Wow.
And then compared to, say, the other screwdriver that may be left behind, clearly it doesn't fit. So, it's not that tool that made that mark. We're still going to collect that item.
And so maybe there might be a fingerprint on that tool then too, right?
Exactly. Or
Gotcha.
contact DNA, which is something that is newer that we can work with. That is just DNA that you're leaving behind by coming in contact with an item. So just by merely handling that barehanded, that screwdriver, we may have fingerprints present, but we're going to have the skin cells that we're shedding and the oils that we look for DNA in and extract those and try to get a profile of a person that way too.
Wow.
So the Shoeprints over here are, these are on elimination paper, and so these are prints that we would capture from other people who are maybe responders to the scene. So firemen, deputies that respond, those initial people that come into the scene that we need to take and have them step on this special piece of paper that's chemically reactive, and we get a copy, if you will, of their shoe print that we can eliminate any shoe prints that we actually find at the scene on a linoleum floor or hardwood floor that may be a suspect.
So any shoe prints that you have that don't match the ones that you have existing from this process, then those shoe prints don't belong there probably.
Correct.
Exactly. So those are the ones that the forensic examiners would want to examine for further evidence.
Gotcha.
Another thing we may commonly find when we're at burglaries or major scenes, and I just had one a few weeks ago, where a person jumped up onto a second-story balcony to burglarize an apartment. Well, in the process of jumping up onto the balcony, they stepped in a muddy area that had just been watered.
Wow.
In that impression, there was an impression of their shoe print. And so what we would do there, and kind of what you're seeing here, is we use a casting material. We would photograph this first, of course. We would use scale, but to actually capture that and take it with us, we have a casting material. It's much like a kind of a dental material. We mix it up and we pour it in there, and once it dries, we're able to actually remove it where it shows the detail of the shoe print that's left at the scene.
So is this kind of similar like what they do when they find like what they think is like a footprint from Bigfoot or something, like they cast
Yes.
it, but this actually has like shoe tread in it and you can see like the shoe, the bottom of the shoe.
Correct.
I would say
yes.
that's from Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bigfoot likes Nikes.
I think it might be yours. Yeah.
That's awesome. Of course, this right here is like what you guys put. We see these on the news if there's like a crime or something like that. These are like little markers where you just, can you explain that? Because I see them, I've seen it before, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so depending on our scene, we have different types of evidence markers that we use to document the scene, to actually show it through photography, and also so we can itemize things and give them numbers. This is one of our most popular one because it is four-sided, so and it's a little bit heavier, so when it's super windy like today, it won't knock over.
Gotcha.
We can also use flags just to give a little bit more of an indication. Say we're in a field where this marker may not work or be accessible, we can stick this actual flag into the ground as our evidence marker.
Oh, cool. So that would be like if there was a shell casing or anything that could potentially be tied to the case that you guys mark it with
Absolutely,
that.
and I think he's going to mark one right
So I'm
here.
going to show you kind of what the purpose of these. So here's a bullet that I have in my hand that we recovered from our range. It's not a piece of evidence. But if you stand in the room, it's hard to figure out where that's at because
Right.
it's so small, it's easy to overlook, especially on an asphalt or pavement roadway. So part of that purpose of those little number stands is when we introduce that, it gives you a place to focus and a place to look. It draws your attention in down, and we know that there's a piece of evidence there, no matter how big or large. And then it allows us to show that more accurately in our photographs or in the diagrams that we make. It's just a good scale so we know how large our number stand is and how big that item is as well, so we can recreate it more effectively.
And these are particularly important when you have such small items of evidence.
Yeah.
Think about it at 2 o'clock in the morning out in the middle of a roadway, it's pitch black,
Right.
you can barely see it. You throw a number stand down there that's yellow and you're able to preserve it, you don't kick it around accidentally, you don't move it, and you can document it accurately.
Wow, this is so cool. So what is the difference between like forensics and CSI? Because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
use those terms like interchangeably.
It's a great question, but it's really one and the same.
Okay.
Just unlike the television show, with forensics and CSI, like in your shows, the character in those shows, they have like actually 10 jobs if you were to break it down into the real working world. So in our specific unit for us, we are full sworn police officers. Our investigations unit, like I'd mentioned before, we go out to the scenes and we document the scenes through photography, fingerprinting, evidence collection, and diagramming. And we make sure we do that correctly to preserve it.
Right.
And then it goes to the next step. So we have other employees that are specialized in doing the fingerprint comparison and identification. We have an entire lab of our own that will say we collect an item of evidence that we want fingerprinted by the lab instead of out in the field, where they can use chemicals, things that need to be processed like chemically, so we can send things there. That's a different person who does that job.
Wow.
And then additionally, we have our Sacramento County Crime Lab. And that's where we have all the scientists that are going to take maybe the blood we collect at the scene, the tool that we collect at a scene, the bullet casings, and they're going to further examine those to make findings.
So when one person commits a crime, it really is a team effort to kind of figure out what happened
Absolutely.
and who that person was that committed that crime.
It is. If you think about it, it's like the spokes of a wheel.
Yeah.
And you've got one central character, maybe the criminal or person that had the act happen to them. And then you've got all these radiating wheels of all these people that come into play that are part of the investigation. You've got the patrol officer, you've got the 911 operator, the dispatcher. They have to get that information to tie that together. Then that patrol officer that responds, they have to request CSI. And then CSI and the patrol officer's reports go to a detective. And then the detective gets the crime lab involved by needing the cartridge casings examined or the blood examined. So it goes off to that. The fingerprints that we recover, the ID techs that we use that do that comparison, they're now involved. If there's a deceased person, the county coroner and the pathologist come into play. So this list just grows and grows of all the role players that are part of the investigation.
Absolutely. This job seems like it seems fun coming here and visit, but to like do this every day, all day, it seems really intense. What made you think I want to work in CSI?
For me, I like solving puzzles. I love a good puzzle. I love a good challenge. So this work really appealed to me, to be able to thoroughly investigate and try to present a case to find the person responsible.
Gotcha.
And I love that. I love investigating and trying to figure out, and because the evidence that we collect can not only show maybe the guilt of somebody, but it can also show the innocence, right? So what we're doing is we're just that impartial party that are documenting a scene, collecting evidence to present for the next person to examine, which may or may not lead investigators in one direction or another, or it may lead, okay, that person actually isn't involved, or maybe now we're going to take a look at this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have this understanding that we're there to show that somebody's guilty, and that's not true. We need to have the evidence speak to what occurred, and that's what our job is by, again, our documentation and showing what took place. Story I like, a long time ago, there was a young family, and they went into the hospital, and a doctor had identified what they thought were bite wounds on their infant. Well, nobody else lived in the home, just the parents and this little infant. When I got there, the wounds on the child did not appear to me to be bite wounds. So there's a difference of opinion between the doctor and what I think. So I do my job. I take the photos, I put it in a scale, ask the parents what could have caused that. And ultimately they said, well, he does have a pacifier. The baby has a pacifier. And so I said, well, where is it? Can we see it? So we went back home, took the pacifier and put it up next to the wound, and sure enough, it makes a perfect match. Wow. So by taking that time and effort to do that, to go find all my evidence, compare it to the injury, that got sent off to a forensic dentist, and the forensic dentist agreed with my conclusion it was the pacifier and not a bite wound. And now this family doesn't have to worry about Child Protective Services or a criminal case or anything else.
Wow.
So that's part of what our responsibility.
It must feel good to know that like it makes a difference. What do you think like the best part for you personally on a personal level of this job is?
Yeah, I think ultimately, I think almost everybody gets into law enforcement because they want to make a difference. They want to help the community and they want to serve. So this division is just another branch of the Sheriff's Department that is here to serve our community.
And our focus is, in our unit, is almost more on the victim side of things or the scene side of things. So we're giving a voice to things that don't normally have a voice, to let it tell its side, whether that's a person or an inanimate object like the things that we're talking about here today.
So I know a lot of us watch like the CSI shows and things like that for entertainment. Do you guys go home and watch those shows at the end of the day, or do you feel like, oh, this is work? I can't watch that.
So that's a great question, and it is honestly the one that we get asked the most when we go to calls. Is this anything like the real TV show?
Like the
right?
TV show. You guys are the real stuff. The TV show's Hollywood.
So I will admit, prior to getting into CSI in my younger years, I love CSI Las Vegas. I watched it religiously. No, I will admit it. Of course, once I started working here, I didn't really watch the shows anymore. Gotcha. And kind of like I mentioned before, while the shows have some facets of truth to what they're doing, they really combine like the job of 10 different people in one show. He was mentioning that wheel of people, they make it kind of one character. Right. And then of course they solve the crime in an hour. Right. So, and we pretty much rarely ever do that. I mean, you'll have a homicide scene where you have detectives working the scene for 3 or 4 days straight. And may not be able to make an arrest for 2 years on it, depending on how it goes. So real life, it's a much slower, tedious, time-consuming process, but they are entertaining.
All right, the video is going to continue. Let's go. Like, it'll be right back like this. See, I told you we'd be right back. So we're outside now, and check this bad boy out. This is like a mobile command center.
This is what
in a truck.
This is what CSI drives. So because of all the equipment, some of what you saw inside our office, we need a bigger platform to take all that equipment to a scene and to have the room to recover whatever we need from a scene. So we drive the pickup trucks. They're unmarked, as you can see, because we want to have kind of a low-profile image. We don't want to advertise, to people, because we don't need the wave downs because we're typically on our way to something. Gotcha. But again, we're deputies. They're fully out-equipped with emergency lights you can see on top. Yeah, right so if we need to take an enforcement action, stop a drunk driver, if somebody's a reckless driver, we can still engage with the truck. It's still outfitted just like a regular patrol car. It just has some different features that are more built for CSI. And you can operate right inside there. You can climb right in.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the inside looks like you got the little computer here like the cops would. Yeah.
It's the mobile data terminal that we all use. So that gives us our calls. We can talk to other units. We can talk to the dispatchers. You can communicate with anybody that you need to use. So it's just a pickup truck, but it's set up exactly like a regular patrol car. Yeah. Just it has some other features. There's the box back here.
Yeah, so we have our storage container back here. We can store some of our bigger equipment, and it also it locks for us, so a little bit more security. You start going to the back of the truck, and this is where we carry some of our common stuff that we're going to use, our marker stand, some of our collection kits, crime scene tape. This is more marker stands here. And then we carry our bigger equipment and our bags and stuff like that in the back, which we can show you as well. Yeah, so the back of the truck's not maybe as exciting as you thought, but really it carries some of our larger equipment like our ladder, We have a major scene kit, which is that's what that is there.
Yes.
And so our major scene kit carries, we can take that into a major scene when we need to do several intricate things like maybe collecting blood, and he'll open it up for you. So that allows us, it's kind of like our toolbox.
Wow, yeah, it looks like a tackle box you would take
Yeah,
fishing,
it's like a
but a
tackle
big
box.
one, yeah.
So we may need to do several things at a major scene, and this allows us not so much back and forth.
Wow.
And we can complete the task a little bit faster. So we have our evidence bags and stuff like that. Of course, it's 100 degrees in Sacramento for
Yeah.
about 8 months out of the year, so we've got our ice chests. This is another toolkit here that has, just maybe wrenches that we need, and he'll open it up for you.
Wow, this is just so cool, like getting this inside kind of peek behind the
Yeah.
curtain, because nobody ever wants to see you guys, heaven forbid, at their house or in their neighborhood, because
Sure.
probably is not great news. So just seeing how you guys operate, like you were saying earlier, you really are meeting people on their worst day ever.
We are.
And so you guys are prepared. You
Yeah.
just
And
have
that-
everything.
And that's the goal of the day, is this truck is prepared. We can take this truck to any scene, and this will allow us to process whatever we come with. So we can assign
Gotcha.
a deputy or 5 deputies to work out of this vehicle, and it'll take care of all of our needs.
So thank you again, guys, for pressing play on this video. Thank you to John. Thank you to Rachel for showing us around this afternoon, the Crime Scene Investigation Unit here at the Sac Sheriff's Office. Like, it's been absolutely amazing seeing things that we've never seen before. And I will talk to you on the next episode of Talk with a Badge.